Well, hello again. We're back. Roland's Reviews. All right. So people are probably going to click on the new stream or whatever. We have a few people in here already. They pretty much realize what they have to do. All right.
I see us behind you.
That's right. And even Dr. Hairston, even if a lot of your constituents and your folks, if they're not here, now they'll be here next Sunday, but please feel free to share this video out with them. Like I said, we're going to have to wait for everyone to come on over to this stream, okay, which is fine. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Roland's Reviews. We are at it again with Dr. Elma Hairston. Of course, she's here sharing her knowledge. We're still learning a lot about what she's doing for the High Point community, what she's doing overall. But specifically today, we're going to be talking about Dr. Hairston, and yes, she's back by popular demand. Okay, you guys demanded it, so she's back. This is going to be a two-part series. And hello, Reese, how you doing? They're coming in now, Dr. Hairston. And if you remember, the last time that Dr. Hairston was here, we were talking about reparations. So today she's going to begin her two-part series with William Darity Jr. and Kristen Mullen's book, From Here to Equality. If you remember, she talked about it and we were like, okay, hurry up, come back. We want to know more. And so this week, we're going to introduce an overview of some of the key top line points. I went and I read some of the excerpts from that book. We all need a copy of that book, as Dr. Hairston stated. She told the truth. Oh my goodness. And then next week, we'll take a deeper dive into the content. You may choose to explore the book on your own. I'm an avid reader, so you don't have to twist my arm. I don't mind reading. I love it. And we talked about reparations remain an issue that has initiated both controversy and delight, depending on which side of the on. However, now's the time to carve a space for meaningful dialogue around this issue and program. So that's what we're going to do today. This dialogue, from all the times that Dr. Hairston's been here, she doesn't use hearsay and innuendo. It's all fact-based. And if people would just pick up a book, they can do a little reading. How you doing, Sugar Daddy? Sugar Daddy's here. Donna's here. They're coming in. Jermaine's here. And we can all learn. So don't take what Dr. Hairston shares with us. Folks, we need to read for ourselves. People are always complaining about, this has happened to me, that has happened. If we would pick up a book and read, that will alleviate some of these things that happen to our people. So this dialogue that she's going to be discussing, she has the quantifiable data to back it up. Okay, so from here to equality, that's just that. And then, we're going to talk about a little video as well. So Dr. Hairston's here. She's going to give us the facts. You guys that are used to being here, you know how we do. Type your questions in the comment section. All right? And Dr. Hairston will answer. And sort of kind of be thinking about some questions for next week as well. All right? So Dr. Hairston has the floor. I'm in the comment section, folks. Please hit the like button. Share this stream out so that we can bring in more people. We can have more dialogue. Dr. Hairston, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Lynn, and thank you for everyone who's listening. And I want to quantify this whole program that we're doing today. I am not a historian, but I am a student of reading and a student of learning and acquiring knowledge that's going to help me have more of an impact as I engage or as I dialogue about specific subjects. And today, this subject matter is based on the book by Dr. William Darity and Kristen Mullen, From Here to Equality. And the book focuses on reparations for Black Americans in the 20th century. But the wonderful and compelling thing about this book is the fact that it is a history lesson. Dr. Darity is a professor at Duke University, and many of his students actually did the research. So what we're dealing with, we're not dealing with a publication that people can say, oh, this is just someone talking about their experiences or something of that nature. This book is a compilation of history, and it makes a case to quantify why reparations should be afforded to African Americans. But let me just take you quickly down memory lane and just really chronicle history for you. And then I'll move into some key top line items from the book. Let's look at 1618 at the Head Right program. This was a program when we were just getting started as a country. Many of the white heads of household was granted 50 to 100 acres of land. And mind you, this land was land that was taken from the Indians, okay? They were extinguished, killed, murdered, taken from the Indians, and that land was given back to white heads of household. They also gave land to any immigrant that could come over from Europe, pay their way over to get here. And they were called indentured servants. You know, you hear a lot of people say, oh, there were white slaves too. Well, you know what? They were indentured servants, and they worked for 7 years. And after 7 years, they were given a plot of land. And according to the book, they were told to move to the end of town because they didn't want them to mingle with the more prominent whites. Although the indentured servants were given land, worked their time off, given land, and went on to have a life, Black people remained in slavery. Let me take you to the next point in history. The Homestead Act of 1862. This is where the federal government started really granting land to white folks. And after the Emancipation Proclamation in 1862, the freed Negroes were supposed to have gotten land, and many of them did have some land. But after Lincoln died and when Johnson took over, he took away all of the promises that Lincoln had out there, including the one that said we'd get 40 acres and a mule.
Right.
So here you've got Black people, freed men, living on some land. And after the Civil War, that land was taken from them. They've got livestock. They were selling products to the federal government, doing well. But that land was taken away. And after the Civil War, the Confederacy actually rolled back the hands of time and put people literally back into slavery.
Right.
There was a time in North Carolina where every family had at least one slave. Even poor whites had one slave. So everything that has been done in this country as it relates to slave labor, it has been to build white wealth. Keep that in mind as we pass here. It was to build white wealth, and much of that was perpetrated by the federal government. Let me take you to the next time in his point in history, in the 1930s to the 1960s. Blacks came home from the military. They couldn't get loans to build homes and things of that nature. So that's when the government set up VA and FHA loans. But let me tell you what they did. They perpetrated institutional racism because they set areas where the blue areas were choice areas where white people could live. The yellow areas were mediocre areas, and the redlining areas were areas where Black folk lived. And in those redlining areas, They got higher interest rates for those loans that they had to pay. They were in the most poorest part of town. So all of that is a part of the overall top line history that we're talking about. Now, let's move over from here to equality. This book makes a case for the fact that every single thing and every single time Black people began to achieve their own sustenance, if you will, they built homes, they built towns, like in Oklahoma, where the Oklahoma massacre occurred. All over the country, Florida, South Carolina, Wilmington, Black people built their own. But each and every time they did, whites would come through and tear it down, burn it down, because they were destined for Black people to have nothing. But the only opportunity they wanted us to have is to work for them. If it had been left to them, we would still be slaves today. Okay? Now here, let me just talk a little bit about this. After the Civil War, land grants were given, and those land grants were given to white families. Now, we are about 8 or 9 generations removed. Those white families are today receiving the benefit from that land that they gifted from generation to generation to generation to generation down.
Right.
It is said, and don't quote me on this, you can look in the book, about 45 million white Americans began their wealth building from receiving those land grants. Much of the land that the universities down in North Carolina are built on land that was granted by the federal government. Yet white America leads you to believe that they gifted that land to the universities. Yeah, they gifted the land to the universities, but the land was gifted to them. So there's so many myths in this country about how hard different people, different races work. You need to look back in history, because much of what people are living on now was granted to them by the federal government. I'm just telling you the facts, folks. It's in the book. And as I say again, the wonderful thing about this book is it's not just a Black man saying something to be heard. It is a compilation of historical events that starts from slavery to Jim Crow to present. When you're studying reparations, and those were the 3 pillars that you need to look at. Right. If you looked at back in the day, companies like J.P. Morgan, Tiffany's, Aetna Life, New York Life, all of these entities were built and formulated off the backs of the statement, "Cotton is king."
Right.
Who was picking that cotton and making its way up to the northern states for them to build clothing and all those kinds of things, or construct clothing and all those kinds of things out of the cotton. So everything you see in this country was literally built from free labor. And that free labor came from folks that they didn't even consider human.
That's true.
They bought and sold slaves just like they did their animals. Some of the atrocities, beg your pardon, Lynn? What did you say?
I was going to ask, I didn't know you were going to ask another question. For the people who speak against reparations is, well, what ancestors did that, I didn't have anything to do. That's the common argument. So I definitely want you to say about that.
Let me tell you how to challenge that denial, and it's right here in the book. The way you challenge that denial, and I'll repeat that because you kind of skipped a little bit in the volume.
Okay.
Folks today say, well, I didn't have anything to do with it. That happened back then. But you know what? It may have happened back then, but you're receiving the benefit from it now.
Yep.
In other words, the privilege and what you receive right now came from the slave labor off of land that we couldn't have, off of the wealth from the land that we couldn't have, the wealth that your family passed down from generation to generation to generation. So the next time somebody says to you, well, I didn't do it, well, you know what? If you won't take responsibility for that, why are you still getting benefit from the wealth? Let's deny, if you want to deny something, deny it across the board. Deny the wealth that's coming your way based on what happened during that time as it relates to the transference of wealth all along the way.
That's right.
Does that make sense, Lynn?
Yes,
so folks out here, when people say to you that, oh, I didn't do it, I had nothing to do with that, that was back then. Okay? What I want you to say is, if you have a problem not denying the fact, if you have a problem denying the fact that it occurred or denying the fact that you had anything to do with it, then I want to see you have the problem receiving the wealth that's coming from it, that you're benefiting from it this day. You're talking 8 generations removed. There is even a study out there that white individuals did in a history class, and that study is an analysis of how far back those land grants go, or how recent those land grants are. The most recent land grant was in 1980. So you're talking about from about 1865 to 1980. Look at the dollars that translates into, and look at the transference of wealth. Look at how the monies were made, maybe parceling out that land, and even on some of those lands, gas was found. So you got those gas leases that were being paid to these descendants of white Americans all along the way, and we got none of that.
Dr. Hairston.
Yes.
And wonder if in your research, not with just that book, I know you've talked about it, and it brings tears to my eyes. You're talking about, when you think about the acres, the thousands, if not millions of acres of land and property that was just taken. And like you said,
literally taken.
And a black person owned the land, and they didn't know the oil was there, but someone else, they would kill them. I mean, there's a lot of nefarious activities that took place that I'm sure we don't even know about.
Well, I'm going to translate some of this stuff to what's happening today. If you look at after the Civil War, one might say the Union won the war, but the Confederates won the battle, because that battle is still forging right now, and they're still winning the battle in the South. Right. Okay. Here's what I'm talking about. You have a situation where these folks seceded from the Union because they were not having nothing to do with not having slaves, because slaves was making their lifestyle easy. Right. Slaves were making their lifestyle very, very easy. Slaves were raising their children, bearing children for them. All kinds of atrocities that happen. And I'm going to go through some of the atrocities in a minute, because they will make you, that part of the book will make you cry. But the bottom line is, when Lincoln was trying to force the Confederates to come into the Union, so he took a lot of their land. But once Lincoln got assassinated and Johnson came in and said he was going to be a friend to the freedman, and turned and said he was not going to honor anything that Lincoln said or did, what he did was gave the white Southerners their power back. So they set the laws, they set the rules, and all of those rules left Black people out in the cold. Yeah, we had an attempt at being able to vote, but we had to have at least $250 worth of land to be able to vote, and many of us didn't have that.
Oh, no.
And then comes the poll tax and all these other ridiculous kinds of things. Okay. Even back in that day, they wanted to remove certain books from the shelves. The Daughters of the Confederacy, they headed up the initiative to remove books from the shelves because they wanted to have children believe that the Confederacy won the Civil War. Just like they're trying to alter history right now. Okay, if many white people would look back into their lineage, they're going to find that they are recipients of land that was granted to their family. Wow. Their family did not work for that land. That land was given to them. So when you talk about people handouts, who really have gotten the handout? Who really got the head start? Who really got the benefit from the wealth that was generated by all of the labor, the free labor that was acquired based on slavery? And we can't, as I said in my piece that I have out now, we cannot glamorize slavery. We just can't say slavery. We got to call slavery what it is. It was rape. It was murder. It was sodomy. It was crimes against humanity. That's what slaves were. And really, we need to call the slaves abductees because they were abducted from their homeland in Africa and brought here by force. There's a piece in the book that talks about immigration. Why do some people come to this country and they make it, and then Black people are still trying to make it? Well, a lot of the immigrants in these countries in this book, they call it Americanization, being Americanized. Right. Many of the immigrants in this country, they can mesh in with the white society. So they can get the benefits of the white society in the way of loans and things of that nature. And if the truth be told, many of the immigrants that come over here and start businesses, according to the data, they actually have family members in other countries that filter that funding in so they don't have to get loans from the banks here. So that's the knowledge that you acquire by just simply opening up this book. The other thing that is so compelling, there is a chapter on statistics from the Pew Foundation. Pew, as anybody knows, is the most reputable marketing research entity in the world. If you ever worked on a doctoral degree, if you ever worked on a master's degree, or even an undergraduate degree, anything you see in Pew is peer reviewed, and it is considered by all scholars as the standard. If you look here at some of the research says the majority of white people feel like Black people are doing okay. Wow. Even a lot of the Black people feel the same way. We perish for lack of knowledge. Let me just share with you one of the statistics that came into play as I was reading the book. "38% of white respondents believe the nation has already made all the policy changes needed to give Blacks equal rights to whites. More than 60% of whites did not believe racial discrimination continues to be an important barrier to Blacks getting ahead. Many of the myths that come into play have to do with the stereotypes that has been leveled against Blacks that we don't want to word. Right. There was a study in here that speaks to the reason young African-American males can't get ahead is because they lack the level of soft skills that whites have based on the same age group. Wow. This book uncovers so many myths, so many untruths that we have begun to believe over time. Even African Americans have believed many of these myths ourselves, which some of these myths are what the things that are holding us back as a people.
Yes, ma'am. You have a question in the chat.
Yes.
Donald wants to know in what form.
I can't hear you.
Donald wants to know in what form should receive reparations.
Let me share that with you.
Okay. Good question.
There are many municipalities around the country that are getting resolutions done so that there can be some level of local impact. But according to Dr. Darity, those reparations should come from the federal government because they perpetrated all of this institutional kinds of things that we are encountering today.
That's right.
And that restitution should be in the form of hard, cold cash. And once you get into the book, the last chapters of the book goes through an equation that they profess to be used to be able to figure that out. Too complicated for me to go into on this call, but the bottom line is the Jewish people got reparations. The Japanese Americans got reparations for being in concentration camps, and the Japanese Americans just finished getting the rest of theirs in 2021. If you call in 2020, the American Indians got the last part of their reparations. So everybody's gotten reparations. It seems like we have to prove. Nobody had to prove anything about reparations. The proof was in the pudding. We know that the Japanese were placed in a concentration camp. We know that the Jews were a product of the Holocaust. We know that the Indians were killed and their land was taken. But we also know that Black people were kept in slavery for generations and generations and generations. But yet no one wants to step up and fess up to the fact that this happened. The first way that healing can take place, the federal government must stand up and say to us and make an apology first and then restitution second. The thing that is so compelling throughout this book, there were so many opportunities to make this thing right before we even get to today. But the white Southern legislature blocked it every time, because you got to understand, they only wanted there to be white rule in this country. They wanted no part of Black people, because Black people, even after the Civil War, Black people there was a meeting where it was a minister from North Carolina headed it up. And the whites called this delegation of Blacks in to say, what is it that Black people really need and want? We want that 40 acres and a mule that stretched from the upper part of South Carolina to the lower part of Florida. He said, we can work with our hands and build on that land. They had an opportunity that moment to grant that land because Lincoln had already said we were to have it. They chose not to. So all through this book, it's like so many emotions that you go through, because you said, okay, it looks like they're getting ready to make something happen here. And then in the next chapter, you look, they back out of it. It's amazing some of the pieces in this book, the mindset in this book, as to how they describe us. They don't describe us as human beings. They describe us as property. And I would venture to say that many of the same mindsets are deeply held today.
Wow.
Those mindsets have not changed. So many of these programs that are meant for African Americans and minorities, I won't say minorities, it's for Black folks. The people that actually run the programs get paid.
Yeah,
Everybody seems to get paid except Black folks.
that's true.
And all of these kinds of issues, we don't get our just due. And the bottom line is, it is time. It is time. There is a bill. I will give you information on that. There is a bill, HR 40, in Washington, D.C. right now. That bill has so many flaws in it. It's beyond comprehension. They're wanting to compensate the commissioners, the people that's making doing the study. They want to compensate them more for the work they're doing, and that's the research that we're talking about.
Wow.
Then they want to pay the Black people that would be due their just restitution from the incidents of slavery.
Wow.
So when white folks make the rules, they say those who hold the gold make the rules. When they make the rules, they're gonna make sure they're getting paid, and we're not getting paid. And the bill is for us. So don't get confused. That HR 40 bill has so many flaws in it, and it's been it's been in the works for 40 years. Almost 40 years, and it's just being brought up again. So the thing about it is, why is there so much controversy? Why is there so much question centered around making things right for Black folks, when all of these other cultures had no problem getting restitution for the wrong that had been leveled against them and their families? So I say to each and every one of you, be vigilant. The one thing you can do is, any organization you belong to, get involved with that organization. You all get together and start writing your congressmen and your senators and urging them to put this issue before the Senate, the House of Representatives, and the Senate. That's the only way. Grassroots action is the only way they're going to take up the banner and at least start talking about this issue. The one thing in the local municipalities is the fact that at least there is some conversation starting about it. And it's a very sensitive issue. And the thing that I say to each and every one of you, do not get into a battle of words with people who don't know what they're talking about.
That's right.
Don't even waste your time. Read the book, so that you can, when you open your mouth to talk about your people and what they endured through this thing called slavery, Jim Crow, and how this is affecting us today, you will have some basis for making an informed decision about what you say and how you say it. All of this off the top of their head that you see a lot of our white counterparts talking about, they don't know what they're talking about because they don't know their own history. So if they don't know their own history, how are they going to tell you anything about anything else? So I say to you, don't get into a war of words with folks on this topic, because most of the time, the people are talking hearsay. The people are talking about what they see on social media. They're not considering the generations and generation after generation of what they've received from the labor that was done in the past. Again, they're going to say to you, oh, I didn't have anything to do with that. That was back then, this is now. But you got to remember, you are still receiving the benefit from the wealth generated 8 generations back. So you got a long track record of receiving what you received based on the slave labor that took place back in the 1865 and or from 1618, 1619 up until 1865. So I want you to remember that, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are out there, study to show yourself approved. Don't try to get into this conversation with hearsay. And definitely don't use the things you see on social media, because most of that stuff is not factually based.
No.
Factually based lies right here in the pages of this reference source. And I will say to you that the last third of this book is nothing but references. So everything that you're reading in this book is quantifiable data that proves the hypothesis of what reparations should look like as we apply the data to the conversation that's going to be able to support the reasoning behind the fact that, yes, the descendants of Black Americans, the descendants of slaves, the descendants of slaves who are Black Americans are to be compensated for the work they did to build this country and the wealth of white America at the expense of Black Americans. Are there any other questions, Lynn?
Yes, one more.
I keep you kind of going in and out. I can't hear you.
Bad internet connection again, probably. Hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. I've changed my internet, but it's still, it's still a little dicey. So, working within an organization that someone may be a part of, is there anything else that you suggest people could do individually or collectively?
I think individually, educate yourself so that when the issue comes up, you have the facts. You have the facts to be able to defend anything that comes your way. Because we know so little about our history, and there's so much to be gained from digging and diving into the history of this book, just for history's sake. If you were just reading this book for history's sake, it would be such an eye-opener. And it would be a review of American history, and much of American history that's been left out, that's been omitted. That's the first thing that you can do from an individual perspective. Arm yourself with knowledge. Knowledge is power.
Say it again.
That knowledge is power on any level. But on this particular subject, arm yourself with knowledge so that you are able to stand your ground when somebody starts talking nonsense to you. And most of the time, it is nonsense.
That's right.
They don't know enough about what they're talking about. They're blowing smoke to you. And if you don't know what you're talking about, then both of y'all are just blowing smoke to each other. Okay? And wasting your breath and time on something that nobody can provide any quantifiable data to support what they're saying. Right. No matter what kind of conversation you get into, when you can quote market research, when you can quote data, you can shut somebody down. Because most people don't stay on top of the data that's out there on any given subject. You're talking about off the top of your head, and you're talking about something you may have Googled or that you may see on social media. Those are not reputable sources. No one considers those reputable sources. Even when you are in your master's program or your doctoral program, you better not put a reference on a paper from Google. If you want to make a very low score, put something from Google on there. Okay? That data has to come from peer-reviewed publications. This is no exception. You must use the data that's coming from peer review. Means that others in the field has assessed it, and they are giving their approval and okay that it's valid enough information for you to include in the conversation or to include in the research.
That's right.
The second thing he asked, yes, collectively we make a bigger and better impact. You can do that on an individual basis to fight your battles individually, but collectively, whatever organization, if you have maybe a Black employee association, for example, that's a good place to start. if you have a any sort of because I used to be president of Colorado Black Women for Political Action in Denver,
Right.
a women's organization. All of these organizations that have the African American interest at heart as a top line item, as a top line of their agenda. Any of those organizations could come together. And, we have a church here in North Carolina. And on one Saturday a month, all of their church members come together. And it's a small church. It's about 250, 300 people. They all write letters to their congressmen and senators on different issues.
Oh, wow.
When they get one or two letters, it's like, okay, oh well. But when they get 300 letters on one topic,
yeah,
that is a arm of their constituency.
That's right.
And they're going to sit up and they're going to take note that number of people cares enough about this particular topic to write letters on. So that's some other ideas that you could come into play for you to collectively, because together we stand, divided we fall. That old adage is true today as it ever was. The more the merrier. I cannot say enough at every platform I'm on, because I was just speaking to a group in New York on Wednesday night. Everybody, help everybody get out to vote. The same level of voter suppression that they were doing back in the day, they're doing it just in a more sophisticated way right now. So if I have to camp out in line at the polls so I can be in line the next day,
yes, ma'am,
I'm going to do it. Each one, reach one.
Right.
If you are Black and on this call, if you need to ask people in your family. If we just take responsibility within our own families to make sure that all of our brothers, sisters, children that are of age, aunts, uncles, relatives, family reunions that's coming up in this summer, have someone at your family reunion. They're registering people to vote. The next time somebody decides to go out and protest because somebody got shot or whatever by the police, have a table out there registering people to vote.
Right.
Now that would scare people to death. That would totally blow their minds. Those people that are marching in what is that area, Lynn, where the young man just got shot by the police? Is it Michigan or one of those states?
No,
I can't remember, but you all know where I'm talking about.
Right.
He was just had an altercation with the police, and it ended up in his demise. And it's okay to protest, march, keep it civil, no rioting, no burning, none of that stuff.
Right.
But the bottom line is, because I don't want nobody talking about me supporting people going out burning and killing and all that. No, I don't support that.
Right.
But marching and making a statement and being civil, not acting like those folks up there on January 6th tearing down everything and beating and killing folks. But the bottom line is, put a table up on the sidewalk and y'all register people to vote. The sight of that in the news would cause people to shake in their boots. Because look at all those Black people that are getting registered to vote. These folks are getting ready. They're getting ready for the next election.
Oh yeah, already.
And y'all need to start now, making sure that you are on the registered roll of registered rolls, because in some places, secretaries of state are purging their records. If you haven't voted, say in the last 2 years or the last year, they're purging your name off the list. And when you get to the polls, you're not going to be on the list to vote.
Wow.
They're closing early voting sites left and right. Here, right in my own city, there are two main places that people used to go and early vote, and they took those away. We got to drive way across town.
Oh, wow.
I don't care if I have to drive miles and miles. I'm going to vote, and you're not going to stop me. So I want everyone to have that determined mindset that I'm going to go out and get as many people as I can to take with me to the polls.
That's good to me.
Are there any more questions, Lynn?
No, people are just making what you're saying. So this has been very enlightening. And again, they're just sort of piggybacking on what you already stated. They're agreeing with you and just, making comments about everything that you said. So,
and Lynn, can I talk one moment on a topic that needs to be put out there?
Sure.
We have got two things. We as a community have got to cut down on the violence against one another.
Thanks.
We're doing exactly what they expect us to do.
Right.
They don't have to do what they have set out to do because we're doing their work for them. We're doing this against each other. Y'all, everyone under the sound of my voice, get busy in your community and see if you can put your arm around our young people and let them know that there is a brighter day. That situation that they're in right now may not be the optimal situation, but just bide your time, put in the work, put in the education piece, and you can rise above that. You don't have to have drugs and illicit kinds of things as a way to make money. You can actually look inside of that potential and that greatness that lives inside of you, and you can make as much money or more than you could ever imagine selling drugs or doing those kinds of things that will get you into some trouble. So I say to all the young people, know that you are a wonderful asset to your people, but you can't be an asset to your people if you're dead or in prison. So I want you to start thinking before you act. And the last thing I want to say, Lynn, I did a police etiquette training program back in 2009 and 2010. I have about 200 young people that know what to do when they get stopped by the police.
Right.
When you get stopped by the police, have your driver's license and your registration card ready to hand out the window. Have it ready. Don't even let them ask for it. No. If you have your driver's license and your ID card, insurance card, 9 times out of 10, they will tell you why they're stopping you. Right. But if you start talking about why you want them, no. Just simply take both of those pieces of information and just sit it right there in your hand for them to get it. Okay? The other thing is, they gave a few pointers. Let me say this to you. If you have a warrant for your arrest, watch this. Now, the police officer told me this one. You can check it to the bank because I was told this when we did the police etiquette program. If you've got something outstanding, and you've got something outstanding, you put your ID out there and you put your card out there. You say, okay, officer, when you go back there, you might see some stuff on me. When the officer went back there, he said, thank you for telling me that.
Right.
You made my job easier. A conversation is started. Right. One guy, the police said, okay, I'm going to do this. If you go to the magistrate in the morning and turn yourself in, I'm going to let you go.
Wow.
You got some good people out there, Lynn. You got some good folks out there. If you conduct yourself in a certain way that I'm talking about, you've got some people who gonna give you a break.
Preach.
Because all these guys aren't about what we're saying that they're about. Okay? So the bottom line is honesty will get you home safe and alive.
That's right.
Proactive actions will get you home safe and alive.
That's right.
So what did I just say? Let me chronicle that. If you're stopped by the police, I've been stopped once, and he said I moved forward into the intersection, so it caused me to sort of red light. He put the light behind me, he turned it on. When he got up to my car, I keep my stuff, my documents right here on the sun visor. Put it out the car. Ma'am, we went out into the intersection, blah, 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 the stoplight. I said, oh, I'm sorry. I was on my way to the doctor and I'm running late. He goes back there, checks my information, comes back to the car and says, ma'am, I'm only going to give you a warning this time.
Oh, wow.
You can go ahead to the doctor. I said, you know what? Your mama raised you right. He smiled, I smiled, and he went on about his business.
Wow.
It's all in how you act when you got it. Y'all, please use the manners that your mother and father and your grandmother taught you. Even when you're stopped by the police. I know you're going to have people that's going to talk rough to you and that's going to talk crazy, if you will. But at least you can proactively do everything in your control that you can do to make sure you arrive home safe. I know what I'm talking about because I worked with police, putting a program together for young people. It was called, So What If You Get Stopped by a Cop? How do you act to make sure that you get home?
That's good.
So Lynn, my life has taken me to so many places, so many situations, and so many encounters.
Right.
And all I want to do is have a heart and a desire to make sure that my people are educated on every level that they can possibly be educated just to make life better for women, children, fathers, and families.
Right.
To ensure
that was very
that we have a productive future.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Hairston definitely from everything I've seen in the chat, everyone definitely enjoyed it. And those of you that are here today, please don't miss out. We have the second part to this conversation next Sunday at 4:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that book that Dr. Hairston is talking about, I've started reading excerpts. That book is no joke. Okay, so those of you who love to read, who want to learn more, again, we can't believe everything on social media or what have you. It would definitely, you're welcome, I love read. It would definitely behoove you to read this book. I'll share some clips. I always have things in the description box below the video. Once YouTube is done processing the video, definitely click on those clips. Again, just Google from here to equality. And you know what, Lynn? I would suggest Black Americans and white Americans. All of us need the data that's in this book. Right. And once we read it, we can have a basis upon which to have a intellectual, informed conversation. Right. But we can't have these conversations, people just blowing smoke, getting mad and doing all of this stuff, and nobody's getting anywhere. So thank you so much for taking time. You are welcome. Schedule. And again, folks, make sure put it on your calendar next Sunday, 4:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Dr. Hairston is going to grace us with her presence again. We're continuing to talk about the book, and she'll also be talking about some things that she's doing locally so far as reparations are concerned. Okay?
Thank you all so very much.
Thank you. Everyone had the same thing. All right, and they'll see you next Sunday.
Okay.
So, thank you so much. Again, it has been enlightening. Just when you think you know everything, you find out something else, you're like, oh, wow.
I learn something every single day. Every single day, I learn something to add to my repertoire of knowledge.
Yeah, that's right. And people in the chat are saying they need that. And Dr. Hairston is the truth. They're clapping their hands. They're doing all kinds of stuff.
Well, thank you so much. And I appreciate your platform, Lynn. It really gives us a platform to get into some real good discussions about how we can help our people prevent some of the kinds of things that's going on right now.
Yes, ma'am.
My mother used to say, we're living in perilous times. We all need to come together to be a resource for one another. And I definitely want to be a resource for your audience in any way that I can help them along the way in what I do professionally or what I do from a community standpoint.
Yes, ma'am.
I am here. I'm available. Just contact me on my website, www.dynamicimages4you.com. Thank you, Lynn.
Right. I'll have Dr. Harrison's information, of course, in the description box. Those of you who are still here, when the video ends, please go in and leave a comment up under the video. And I'll put your name in the spin wheel. And whoever wins, you can get a little money in your Cash App account. Okay, so thank you again for spending your Sunday afternoon with Rollers Reviews. Dr. Hairston, I will be texting you shortly to share this video, so you share this with your constituents. Okay?
Very good. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so much.